Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please wait for another 5 minutes. We will start the event soon. And for all participants, you can rename your name as the Zoom format. And in the meantime, for all participants, don't forget to proceed with the registration link. Thank you.
Good morning, Pak Bambang.
Good morning, Mr. President.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Looking good.
Nusantara Capital Authority. Hello, welcome, Pa. Good morning.
A very good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Okay.
Morning,
Thank
Alisa.
you. Hello, Pa Bambang and Pa William. Thank you for joining us today. We will have a pre-event webinar on the theme of building an integrated, intelligent, and sustainable transport system of the new capital of Nusantara. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Alisa Natalie, and I will be your host for today's event. And before we start the webinar, I would like to give a brief explanation about the upcoming 19th Asia Pacific Forum. The Intelligent Transport System Indonesia, or as we know, ITS Indonesia, and ITS Asia Pacific Secretariat, alongside with the Ministry of Transportation of the Republic of Indonesia, are honored to host the 19th ITS Asia Pacific Forum 2024 on the 28th until the 30th of May 2024 in Jakarta Convention Center, Indonesia. As we stand at the intersection of growing urbanization, expanding transportation network, intensifying technology advancement, and the burgeoning green industry, it is the time to delve into the theme of transformation towards the sustainable and intelligent urban mobility, an urgent call for innovative solutions in our rapidly evolving cities. And the 19th ITS Asia Pacific Forum, comprised as a series of events, including a high-level ministerial roundtable, high-level panel discussion and plenary session, and a special intersession with an Academia Forum, exhibition, demonstration, and technical tours. And also, I would like to welcome, before we start, our VIP guests that are already joining us with us today here. There are Mr. Bambang Susanto as the chairman of Nusantara Capital Authority, or OIKN. Hello, Mr. Bambang.
Yes,
And
good morning.
good morning. And next we have Mr. William Sabandar as the president of ITS Indonesia. Welcome, Mr. William.
Morning. Morning, Alisa. Good morning,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you for joining us. And next up in line, we have Ms. Sylvia Halim as Deputy for Facilities and Infrastructure of Nusantara Capital Authority. Good morning, Ms. And next up, we also have Mr. Agung Wicaksono as the Deputy for Funding and Investment and the Nusantara Capital Authority. Mr.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Agung Wicaksono as the Deputy of Good morning, Mr. Agung, as the Deputy of Funding and Investment on Nusantara Capital Authority. Next up, we have Ms. Sijit Trosat, the Vice President of APAC and General Manager of Australia Q3 ASAP. Good morning, Miss.
Morning. Thank
Am
you
I
for
am
having
I
me.
am I pronounced your name right, Miss Silgi?
Celia. Celia.
Celia. Okay, sorry for the mispronunciation.
That's
Thank you so much for joining us. Next up in line, we have Miss Susan Harris as the CEO of ITS Australia. Good morning, Miss Susan.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. And
Thank
next
you,
up,
Lisa.
we have Mr. Fred Colt as the president of ITS Singapore and managing director of Unex Traffic Asia Pacific. And we would like to also welcome for all participants. Thank you so much for joining us today. This webinar, jointly organized by ITS Indonesia and the Nusantara Capital Authority, or as we know, the Otorita Ibu Kota Nusantara, as a pre-event for the ITS Asia Pacific Forum 2024. We aim to introduce the familiarization of stakeholders from the government, private sector, and international sectors with the visionary of City of Tomorrow concept, with a particular emphasis of dynamic implementation and innovative applications of intelligent transportation systems within Nusantara. With the main theme of building an integrated and intelligent sustainable transport system in Nusantara, we have delved into the strategic theme as the vision of 10-minute city with 80% of travel facilitated by public transport, fostering a green urban environment. What an exciting webinar that serves as a platform to know the knowledge of exchange, inspiration, and strategic engagement, the positioning the Nusantara as the center of ITS innovation and sustainable urban development in Indonesia. So, without any further ado, distinguished participants, to begin today's event, we will be having an opening remarks delivered by Mr. William Sabandar as the president of ITS Indonesia. For Mr. William, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Alisa. Good morning, ladies, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today at the Intelligent Transport System webinar, A Journey to the ITS Asia Pacific Forum 2024. And first of all, it's an honor and privilege for me to welcome you today at the webinar with the theme of building an integrated, intelligent, and sustainable transport system in the new capital of Nusantara. So this event marks a significant milestone in our journey to redefine the transportation infrastructures of our new capital. First, I would like to extend a very warm welcome and thank you to Bapak Bambang Susantono, the head of the new capital city authority. Pak Bambang Susantono, as we know, has shown that his leadership and commitment to sustainable urban development are not only commendable, but also crucial to our shared goal in Indonesia. I also extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished speakers who have graciously joined us today. Ms. Sylvia Halim, Deputy for Facilities and Infrastructures of Nusantara Capital Authority, Mr. Agung Wicaksono, Deputy for Funding and Investment Nusantara Capital Authority, Ms. Susan Harris, the CEO of ITS Australia, Mr. Fred Colt, President of ITS Singapore and Managing Directors of Unex Traffic Asia Pacific, and Ms. Celia Troset, Vice President APEC and General Manager Australia at Q3. And of course, all the participants who now joining us, we receive about 500 participants, and at the moment we have about 200 participants joining, not just from Indonesia, but from all over the world, including the countries who are actually part of the intelligent transport systems. As the president of ITS Indonesia, I am incredibly excited to be part of this important initiative. Today, we come together not only to share ideas, but to forge a path toward an integrated, intelligent, and sustainable transportation system. And our goal is clear: to create a framework that supports economic growth, protects the environment, and promote social inclusivity. We thank very much that we have Professor Bambang Susantono, who will have the opportunity to share with his vision on building the city of Nusantara as the city with the backbone of transport system with promote intelligent and sustainable transport system to the future. Together with important leaders and all of you participating today, we are ready to explore innovative solutions and cutting-edge technologies that will shape the future of Nusantara. This collaboration between ITS Indonesia and the New Capital City Authority is a testament to our commitment to excellence and our dedication to making the new capital a beacon of modernity and sustainability. In a month from now, on the 28th to 30th of May 2024, ITS Indonesia is going to host Asia Pacific Forum 2024 at the Jakarta Convention Center, Jakarta. And I would like to invite all of you to participate, register, and attend this global forum. And one of the key aspects of this forum is actually an introduction, discussion, exhibition, and demonstration of progress and opportunities of building a sustainable transport system in the new capital, Nusantara. So please join us to this forum next month. Finally, I thank you to all of you for your enthusiasm and willingness to contribute to these transformative efforts. Let us proceed with a spirit of cooperation and creativity, ensuring that today's discussion translate into tangible outcomes for the advancements of our society and future generations. Let's begin today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. William Savandar, for the opening remarks. And next up, we will hear a keynote speech delivered by Mr. Bambang Susantono as the chairman of Nusantara Capital Authority. Please welcome Mr. Bambang. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, moderator, Honorable President of ITS Indonesia, my dear friend, Dr. William Sabandar, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you, and it is my great pleasure to join you at this ITS Asia Pacific Forum. Thank you for ITS Indonesia for inviting me to these special sessions. I would like to use this opportunity to share the progress of the development of Indonesia New Capital Nusantara, and also to discuss our strategies for developing a sustainable transport system in this new capital. Allow me to begin by sharing with you some basic facts about this new capital. Nusantara will be located on a different island from Jakarta. This is unique because the movement of other national capitals typically remains within the same landmass. In Indonesia's case, moving our capital to a more centrally located island will help to bolster our domestic value chain and promote more equitable development across the country. It is also important to note that this bold task of creating a new city is not a standalone project, but a critical component of a bigger journey toward achieving the Indonesia 2045 visions. The vision aims to create inclusive and equal economic growth in Indonesia as a requirement to be a high-income country. The development of a new city in the strategic locations of Indonesia is expected to catalyze greater economic distributions and boost the country's economic and social growth. Beyond that, the development of Nusantara reflects Indonesia's determination to make a tangible contributions to at least 3 global campaigns. One, or first, Nusantara strives to make an active contributions in the global campaigns against climate change. The government of Indonesia is determined to make Nusantara as Indonesia's first city to reach net zero emissions by 2045, ahead of Indonesia's national target of 2060. Key to this strategy is our plan to transform 65% of our landmass from a production forest into a tropical forest through reforestation process. I'm pleased to share that last December at COP28 in Dubai, we announced the Nusantara Net Zero strategy, and we take pride in being the first city in Indonesia with a locally and regionally determined contributions, or RRDC, or a roadmap to achieve net zero emissions. Second, Nusantara wants to join the global agenda in conserving biodiversity by rejuvenating the rich flora and fauna of Kalimantan or Borneo. It is made possible by the development of Nusantara as a sustainable forest city. To do so, we are guided by Nusantara Nature Positive Plan, which was launched earlier this month. The plan outlines our strategy to protect Nusantara's wildlife in alignment with the Global Biodiversity Framework Kunming, Montreal. And thirdly, we want to join the global movement in aligning the city's development with Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. We are working closely with different agencies to track and report on the SDG progress in Nusantara. And 2 months ago at UN ESCAP in Bangkok, we launched with preliminary findings of the Voluntary Local Review, or VLR, of Indonesia new capital, Nusantara. I'm proud to share that the UN ESCAP acknowledged Nusantara as the first new national capital in the world that submits its VLR. To allow us to participate in such ambitious campaign, Nusantara receives solid support, including from international development institutions. Through partnerships, Nusantara can quickly gain international best practices and exchange knowledge to align ourselves with the 3 global agenda that I mentioned earlier. These institutions see Nusantara as a living lab or living laboratory, which provides them with an opportunity to generate new knowledge in addressing global challenges. The total area of Nusantara includes a land area of more than 252,000 hectares. That is almost 4 times larger than Jakarta and about 3.5 times larger than Singapore. The nearest city of Nusantara's core area is the city of Balikpapan. It currently takes around 90 minutes to drive from Balikpapan to Nusantara. A toll road is currently being built to connect the 2 cities, and when completed, the new road will cut the traveling time to around 40 minutes only. By 2024, we aim to build a fully functional ecosystem within an area of around 1,000 hectares. This ecosystem will include the President Palace and government offices, as well as essential services such as schools, hospitals, and markets. The ecosystem will subsequently serve as the model for Nusantara further development beyond 2024. The key feature of Nusantara is that the city is designed to be a smart and sustainable forest city. I believe this concept of sustainable forest city is the first in the world. This concept comes from the fact that 65% of the land area will be transformed from a production forest into a tropical forest. The creation of tropical forest is done through reforestation process to rejuvenate and preserve the ecology. The forest area also provides the city with nature-based solutions, NBS, as it will increase water absorption, reduce the risk of flooding, and act as a carbon sink. Nusantara will also employ innovative approaches such as nature-based solutions, I mentioned to you earlier, in which the city harnesses natural processes and also ecosystems. With all these features, Nusantara aims to be a carbon neutral city by 2045. And again, this is ahead of Indonesia national net zero target in 2060. The transformation of urban mobility in Nusantara is a critical step toward creating Nusantara as a sustainable forest city. It starts with managing travel demand through effective urban planning, preventing urban sprawl with clear urban delineations, and promoting mixed-use zoning. This approach balances trip within the city, supports high-density areas, and drives economic scale. By effectively managing travel demand, Nusantara will reduce transport distances while encouraging the use of public transportation and active mobility, such as walking and cycling. Our policies will focus on providing incentive for these sustainable options while discouraging private car usage. Additionally, managing transport demand helps reduce traffic, creating more space for public and active transportation and vibrant urban activities. Nusantara strategy, including limiting parking and road capacities and introducing park and ride facilities, to keep traffic flows manageable. These comprehensive approaches ensure a sustainable, efficient, and also inclusive urban environment. So, building on these approaches to managing travel, transport, and traffic demand, and as part of our visions to become a world-class city for all, Nusantara has set 4 key performance indicators, or KPIs, that are related to the transport sector. And to achieve these KPIs, our approach in smart mobility focuses on achieving 3 main benefits. First, it enhances decision-making with real-time data analysis, preventing the common mistake of public transportation planning in some other cities. Secondly, it optimizes public transportation performance, such as by informing passengers and operators about timely schedules and corridor congestions, enhancing user experiences and operational efficiency. And lastly, smart mobility minimizes human error, mitigating safety risk. And this commitment to smart mobility underscores our dedications to a sustainable urban mobility transformation in Nusantara. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, what will Nusantara transport system look like 20 years from now in 2045? The city's intelligent transport infrastructure will incorporate features such as advanced air mobility, autonomous mobiles, drones, and robotics to enhance the logistics system, and it will also offer autonomous on-demand public transport for convenient travel. We certainly plan to deploy other cutting-edge building technologies in its city ecosystem, and these include AI-based smart building ecosystem and centralized utility management. So let me take this opportunity to also share how we are progressing so far in terms of the construction in the field. These are the photos from mid-March, and I'm pleased to update you that we have made significant progress, with the overall progress being about 70%. The construction of the presidential palace is approximately 60% complete, and the presidential office is about 78% complete. Meanwhile, the ministerial housing is 82% complete at this time. We have also nearly completed the city's main axis, which will connect these offices with shopping malls and other amenities. To support the development, we have built housing compounds for construction workers to ensure that they have proper accommodations while working on the capital projects. These roads and housing compounds are facilitating the major construction works that are currently in progress. Outside the government core area, a dam that will supply the raw water to Nusantara residents has been completed. To support the reforestation, we are also building several plants nurseries, including one in the Mentawir area. This nursery will produce 15 to 20 million plants every year, and we will use these plants to transform Nusantara from a productive forest right now into a tropical forest. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude my keynote by inviting you all together, whether as part of ITS or as an individual, to be part of this historic journey. Let me reiterate that Nusantara is not just an ordinary infrastructure and facilities projects. The building of Nusantara is not only about transforming Indonesia, it is also about inspiring the world with new ways to live better and more sustainably, while simultaneously preparing to tackle the global challenges of the future. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bambang Susantano, for the keynote speech. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the main agenda of the pre-event webinar, followed by a panel discussion that will be moderated by Susan Hart as the Chief Executive Officer of ITS Australia. As we know, Susan is highly regarded for her roles supporting the growth and innovation of the transportation sector across several industry advisory group and as a regular advisor to the government and ministers of transport technology and mobility related issues. She is inspired by the opportunities that technology can deliver across transport and mobility. With an extensive career in transport strategy as Chief Executive Officer of ITS Australia, Susan is ideally placed at nexus of technology and transportation to translate the benefit to business and Australian community, supported by strong connections to the international ITS community and global networks. Without any further ado, please welcome Susan Harris.
Thank you very much, Alisa, for that very welcome. And thank you very much, William Sabanda and Bang Bang Nusantara for that great scene setting. Very exciting project that we see in Nusantara, and I look forward to some further discussions from our panelists here now. Look, thank you very much for the opportunity to be involved in moderating this panel. Very privileged to have that invitation. And I'd also like to welcome all of our viewers from Indonesia. I know there are a number from Singapore, Australia, throughout Asia Pacific, and throughout the globe that have taken the opportunity to hear about this exciting project taking place in Indonesia.
Miss Susan, I'm so
Yes.
sorry to cut you, but beforehand, I think we need to take a picture first with all the keynote speaker and also the opening remark speaker with also with Miss Susan. So sorry to cut you off in the middle of the moderator session. So please, for all the speakers, do we still have Mr. Bambang Susantono here?
Pak Bambang, I think, has left. He just
Oh,
another. No problem.
okay. Should we wait for another minute or?
No. Pak Bambang has just left.
Oh, has just left. Oh, okay. So can the operator help us to take the picture of the moderator and all the speakers for today's event? Okay, I'm gonna try to count in 3, 2, 1. Another one in 3, 2, 1.
Where is Pak Agung?
Pagung, can you hear us?
Here. Pak Agung is joining.
I'm here, but I wasn't inside.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think
Okay.
Pak Bambang has mentioned to me he has left. He has another things to do.
Oh, okay. So
Let's see.
sorry to hear that. So, the operator, can you help us?
Yes.
Okay, one more time. And 3, 2, 1. Give your best smile. Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much for all the speakers and moderator. For all the screen, I will give back to Miss Susan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alisa. I'm glad we've got that important activity done. Be terrible to forget that opportunity. Look, again, just thank everyone for jumping online and joining. I think it really reinforces the excitement in the transport technology sector around the opportunities of building this new city in Indonesia. Really would like to congratulate ITS Indonesia and the Nusantara Capital Authority for putting this webinar on, again, reflecting the great interest. And I'm also just reflecting on, this is a great teaser for the Asia Pacific Forum taking place later in May in Jakarta. ITS Australia will be pleased to lead a really strong delegation there. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the different topics that we'll be hearing about today there. So part of the objectives of this webinar is to really introduce and familiarise stakeholders around the globe, from government, from industry, vision for the city of tomorrow. We've already seen some of what's in mind for that. There's been a great emphasis on the dynamic implementation and the innovations that are taking place there. And we're really pleased to have a couple more speakers that will be giving some further insights on that. And then also some international speakers that will bring their learnings from their international experience and perhaps some other suggestions of initiatives that can be built in and integrated within the new capital. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Sylvia Halim. So Sylvia is a civil engineer. She's made her mark as a director of the construction for the successful MRT project in Jakarta since 2016. Sylvia currently serves as the Deputy for Facilities and Infrastructure at the Nusantara Capital Authority in Indonesia. She plays a pivotal role in the planning, development and relocation of Indonesia's national capital, while overseeing policy development, execution, coordination, monitoring and supervision within the Nusantara Capital Authority. Certainly sounds like a big job, Sylvia. Really looking forward to hearing from you and to hearing how that's progressing and your insights. Thank you very much for your time today.
All right, thank you. Hi, Susan. Good morning, and everyone, Honorable Chairman of the New Capitals and Honorable Presidents of ITS Indonesia. It is my pleasure and my honor to be part of the panel this morning and to share with you a little bit more about the new capital of Indonesia. So I'd like to begin with just a quick recap about how the new capital is actually coming or in alignment with Indonesia's visions for 2045. So we have 4 visions of 2045 for Indonesia, is that for the human capitals and technology advancements, for the sustainable economic developments, equitable developments in Indonesia, and of course, enhancing the national resilience and governance, right? And in the new capital's visions itself, next, is actually to become a world-class city for all. And for all means it's not just for Indonesia's populations, but also for the rest of the world. And therefore, our missions is to be the world's sustainable city, to be a symbol of our national identity, and of course, an economic driver for Indonesia's futures, as it will trigger the equitable developments of Indonesia's. Now, for the developments of the new capital itself, there are 3 main concepts that we have adopted, that we have established to be the guiding principles. The first one is how the new capital is to be a sponge city or a water sensitive city, to be a city that's resilient for the climate change. And of course, a forest city, whereby we have 65% of the new capitals to be a rainforest, to be a reforestation, but through reforestations. And of course, to become a smart city, whereby part of it, obviously, is the accessibility and mobility through the intelligent transportation systems. Now, to achieve that, we have break it down to 8 principles and 24 key performance indicators. Now, these are ambitious key performance indicators for us to work on in the new capital, because these are some of ambitious targets and ambitious numbers to be achieved over the next 20 years ahead. But I'd like to emphasize in the context of today's sessions with the ITS community that they are 4 KPIs specifically related to connectivity and mobility in the new capitals. They are the 80% public transportation's mobility, the 10-minute city developments, and of course, the target for less than 50 minutes of connections between the new capital with the strategic airport, and of course, the net zero emissions targets for the city by 2045. Next slide. Now, the developments of the new capital is never be seen as a standalone developments. At least it is to be developed as a super hub with the adjacent city in the East Kalimantan, which is Samarinda and Balikpapan. And therefore, in terms of connectivity, it is very important and critical that between these 3 cities and the areas in between. This is to ensure that the economic growth that we've been talking about can actually be realized through equitable accessibility for everybody in the new capital and the East Kalimantan. Next slide. And within the new capital itself, we have identified 9 development areas that is been also identified as the 9 economic generators. So you can see here how the new capital is not just about relocating the central government from Jakarta to East Kalimantan, but it's also about building a complete ecosystem of a city with various economic generations. So again, that means the connectivity between the 9 development areas are very important to ensure that all these plan and these targets can actually be achieved. Now, The developments of the new capital obviously is not going to be happening over night. Yeah, it's actually will takes many years to come. And in this case, we have actually established a master plan whereby the new capital will be developed over 5 stages from 2022 until 2045. Now, we are currently in the first stage of the developments that will end this year, 2024. And for this first stage of developments, we are targeting or estimating about populations for about 180,000 to 220,000, and that includes the existing residents and populations in the new capitals. And our target by 2045 is an estimated about 1.9 million populations for the new capitals. Now, the developments of the new capital itself are beginning with the core government areas where the central government will be located. This is an area of about 6,800 hectares. And out of this 6,800 hectares, we are focusing 1/3 of it. We call it core government area 1A. And this is currently, there is massively under constructions and where the operations of the new capital will begin. And currently the progress is already about 79.83%. That consists of the various infrastructures that includes the presidential palace, the water dam, the road networks, the toll roads, and as well as the other basic infrastructures such as like drinking water, electricity, telecommunications, and so on. Next. Now, when it comes to the mobility and connectivity in the capitals, as I mentioned, there are 4 main KPIs and targets for us to work on. And those KPIs translate into 3 main strategy for us, which is the first one is to have an integrated network of public transportations as well as the road networks and accessibilities for the new capitals. Secondly is to have an intelligent transport system in place so that we can have a smart systems, smart transportation systems. And of course, the priority of an active mobilities and if should we have any vehicles or transportations, then we are looking at non-fossil fuel or electrical public transportations. Okay, next. Now, what we aim for in the new capital is transformations, and this includes transformations in urban mobility. And how you want to achieve it? One of it is, of course, through the intelligent transportation systems. And what we hope for through the ITS system in implementation in the capital is first is that we will be able to collect data in real time so that we can provide a better passengers experience, giving priority to active mobilities and public transportations, and of course to have a big data to allow us to have a better decision making, and of course to ensure safety and security of the transportations in the new capitals. And this ITS system that we are having in plans consists of 8 systems, such as the advanced traffic management systems, autonomous driving systems, the advanced parking systems, and so on. But most likely that we have in priorities for the 2024 at the beginning of the operation of the capitals are the command centers for the intelligent transport systems, the advanced traffic management system, the public transportation management systems, and the advanced traveler information systems. Because we want to begin the day 1 of the capitals, straight away the implementations of public transportations in the capitals. And of course, in terms of the funding of the new capitals itself, basically 80% are coming from the government fundings, and about 20% is from the government funding, and about 80% from the private sectors. And these are coming from the various business models, which I think will be shared furthermore by my colleagues, Pak Agung, later on. So what we can expect in new capitals in August 2024 is constructed areas of core government area 1A, about 292 hectares. And we will begin it by having the Independence Days. And of course, the first populations of the population to the new capital consisting of the civil servants of Indonesia. So we hope that we will be able to see you there, and we welcome all of you to participate in the developments of the new capitals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Look, certainly a very ambitious project, but so pleasing to see that it's so well on track and that you have so much work underway already at this stage. I hope you'll be able to stay around for our conversation on the panel at the end. And just for our guests on the line as well, if you do have questions, please send them through on the chat. So Sylvia, just reflecting on all those ambitious targets and the amount of activity that needs to take place, just interested to understand how you're engaging with the private sector to get that assistance and support to move forward with the development and what the opportunities might be. Thanks, Sylvia.
Thank you, Susan, for the questions. So basically, we have been, you call it like a roadshow. You can say that, yeah, that we share with everybody about what is the new capital all about, and what we need actually for the developments of the new capital, especially when in this case, when it comes to transportations, right? And when it comes to smart city, and of course about smart mobility. Basically, we share with all of them what is actually needed for the new capitals and what is our targets. And we are inviting them to basically come forward with their ideas, with their innovations, right? And with whatever business models and proposals that they may have, because the new capital is basically is a once in a lifetime chance to build a city from scratch, right? To actually finally maybe put to test or put to proof and evidence of any idealism that we have probably been thinking of about what a capital should be or what a modern city should be. So we always poise ourselves as a living lab, and therefore we are always very open, and we do invite, and we want to embrace all the new technologies that is probably out there currently is being developed. And then you can come and with the new capitals and see how it will turns out in the capitals.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that idea of the living lab where we can try things and be nimble enough to move forward as things are being changed and developed. So, congratulations on the great work so far and the vision with some great ideas in there. So I'm going to move on now and introduce our next speaker. So for a bit more up on the Nusantara Capital City Authority, we have Anggang Wikanthano, who's the Deputy for Funding and Investment. Now, no doubt this is another really significant and important role, looking to support the funding for the new capital. So I'll hand over to you to give us an update there. Thank you, Anggang.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning. My name is Agung Wicaksono, and while Sylvia opens the way for transportation to move when it comes to the infrastructure, I have to open the way for the capital, for the money to move and flow in to build the infrastructure necessary for this capital city. So with that, I'd like to begin my remark with the next slide. That is about Nusantara itself. As mentioned by Chairman Bambang initially, that this is the first time in the world that a capital city will move from one island to another. We have our capital now in Jakarta, in the island of Java, but here, the fact that we move it to the island of Borneo, of Kalimantan, means two things. Number one, Kalimantan is known for the tropical forests of the world, meaning we have the vision here to actually preserve the forest ecosystem in Borneo with the establishment of Nusantara. The second is about creating an equitable development by moving the capital city to Kalimantan, we would like to create not just a capital city, but also an economic hub in the future. And that economic hub in an area of about 250,000 hectares of land and will serve about 4 million population will need about 32 billion US dollar funding. And as of now, only 20% of that will be fulfilled by the state budget, meaning about 80%, the remaining will have to come from the private sector. So the next slide, we see in the next page that as of now, private sector has come to Nusantara, investors has lined up and has progressed to build Nusantara using the private money. So as of now, it's close to 50 trillion rupiah of investment coming in. So when it comes to US dollar, it's about 3.5 billion US dollar in about 5 groundbreaking ceremonies that was done in the past half year. So it ranges from hotel, hospitals, school, also we'll see later, transportation infrastructure as well as energy infrastructure. And with that, I think we're going to progress even more private sector investment coming in, especially now that today we have declared an official result of the election, which provides certainty. And as you all know, for investment to come, the most important is to have certainty. And now we have a certainty of the government formation following the result of an election. And with that, we are very bullish that investment will continue to flow to Nusantara. In the next page, we see this is what was mentioned. This investment is necessary to cover, as of now, based on the National Middle-Term Development Plan until 2024, that 80% will come from the private sector. And from that, we see the breakdown of that 80%, 54% will come from what we call the PPP, Public-Private Partnership Framework, which I will elaborate further, while the remaining 26% will come from pure private investment. So the next page shows that Nusantara has, as of now, the most attractive incentive scheme in Indonesia, ranging from fiscal incentive, ease of doing business, and also government guarantee. So we have incentives such as tax holiday, value-added tax incentive in terms of exemption of the VAT on certain goods, super tax deduction for donation up to 350%, yeah, especially if you do an investment or R&D. The ease of doing business through customs, land ownership that is the most significant as of now compared to any other area in Indonesia. Also incentives for foreign worker, provision of housing, and not to mention, this is especially the last point related to public-private partnership, is on the role of government guarantee through PPP support, technical assistance, and also through joint investment with the Indonesian Sovereign Wealth Fund or the Indonesian Investment Authority. So with these incentives, going forward to the next slides, we have altogether, as of now, 12 sectors that we prioritize for this incentive to create investment. This 6th sector, if I zoom in more detail, one of the 12 sectors is transportation. Yeah, something that I think ITS is very much an expert on. So on transportation, we have developed a long list of the needs of programs for the long term, as well as especially for short to medium term. For the long term, we have the list there. Sylvia mentioned before about smart transport management system, ITS command center, and so on. But for the short to medium term, this is our priority at the moment, and this is already ongoing right now, is we have public transport through EV bus, yeah, and second is railway. It is very interesting that I think in relation to ITS and also our role, myself and Sylvia, we have both been involved in public transport before in Jakarta, while Sylvia was in charge of construction and MRT, and I was in charge of operation. And after that, in terms of BRT, bus rapid transit, I was in charge of in Jakarta, and we have started at that time, and now we have the first electric bus in Indonesia running in Transjakarta, starting from 3 units electric bus, and now we have about 100 units. So this success in Jakarta, we would like to emulate to happen in Nusantara, both in terms of EV bus as well as in airport railway, especially based on the MRT experience. The next slide, we see this is the very short term, and in fact, this is already happening right now. When it comes to electric vehicle, a taxi operator, in fact, the largest or probably the only one that is serving electric vehicle taxi in Indonesia, Bluebird, has kickstarted the initiative for the green mobility in Nusantara. The president himself was present when Bluebird launched this initiative in Nusantara. They will start with electric buses, so about 11 electric buses serving the intra-city route within Nusantara and the intercity connection between Balikpapan and Nusantara. And they are also going to build the facilities both for the park and ride, for the non-public transport vehicle to stop and then transfer to the electric bus, as well as the bus depot for the electric vehicle that will be operating. So this is an agenda that we are currently working on, and with the target that in 2024, we will start having the service of electric bus in Nusantara to come from Bluebird. In the next slide, we see not only Bluebird, the interest of private businesses to take part in Nusantara, especially in EV development, is enormous. From operatorship, we have Bluebird, but also the state-owned company Damri is interested. Even international name like Comfort Del Gro, a brand name we know from Singapore, for example, has expressed interest. And we also have our state-owned enterprise, or we call it the Nusantara Authority Enterprise. The name is Bina Karya. And the role of Bina Karya here, we identify as a potential to be an integrator, following the experience of how, for example, in Jakarta, we have the Transjakarta as the state-owned enterprise of the Jakarta provincial government. Also, when it comes to manufacturer, we have names like the BYD from Shenzhen in China, who has expressed interest and in fact has collaborated with the Indonesian brand name and also manufacturer. Also, we have Kalista, which is a member of Indica Energy Group, related to electric buses, who has been working together also, for example, with Bluebird. Also, brand name Skoda, for example, from the Czech Republic, who also has expressed interest, and many others. And this all will happen if we have the supporting infrastructure, like the production facilities for batteries. And also here we see a company named VKTR, which is now the distributor of BYD, but also have their production facility working together with Pertamina New and Renewable Energy for the electric mobility as a service or e-mass ecosystem. The next slide we see, this is the modality that we are designing for this public transport in EV. That is called the PPP scheme through availability payment. So here you see the project company that will operate will sign an agreement with us, with Nusantara, but then the availability payment or the subsidy will be provided by the Ministry of Finance, and a guarantee agreement between Ministry of Finance and IIGF, Indonesian Infrastructure Guarantee Fund, will be signed with the project company, so that the tariff paid by the passenger will be collected by Nusantara, but then the project company will get the payment coming from Nusantara on the basis of the service. So this provides an assured support for private sector, for operator in serving our passengers, especially because we, the government, see this as one of the priority sectors. And we also see the opportunity for this operator to work in developing the transit-oriented development or TOD business. Next slide. We are seeing now the airport connection through railway between the airport in Balikpapan to Nusantara. As of now, the feasibility study is being done by the Ministry of Transportation. We're working toward a target of operation in 2029. So yes, in the next 5 years of the next government, we would like to make this operational from Balikpapan Airport to Nusantara, and we have identified the investment potential as well as the investors who are already submitting the letter of intent and currently being in the pipeline. The next slide shows this is also the scheme, the potential scheme for the railway. So we have the scheme for the EV bus, and this is for the railway, again, also through PPP concession and the involvement of Nusantara as well as the Ministry of Finance that will be tuned out in further detail later. And in the next slide, I think this is the last slide. This is the last slide that we're very fortunate about. This forum today, this pre-event forum hosted by ITS, also a sign that ITS Indonesia, led by William Sabandar, who is the president, is currently also serving Nusantara as the head of the team, what we call it the expert assistance team on transportation. So with the expertise of ITS and also with the commitment of Nusantara to create a smart and sustainable forest city, we believe that ITS will be a very important partner to make this happen. So in the final slide, I would like to thank you all, because we believe some people make things happen. Some just watch things happen while others wonder what has happened. I believe ITS is here with us to make Nusantara happen. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that overview. Look, what a tremendous project, and what, you know, I think the vision for funding with the partnership between, you know, foundation funding from government and then drawing on industry is a great way to make sure that we get the innovative insights from industry and the best of what they have to offer as part of this vision for the new city. I can see that there's a really strong focus on electrification of the infrastructure, which is a great pathway to having a clean and green city. Has there been thought put into the source of power that will be used for the city? Is that something that we're able to explore at the moment?
Yes, Susan. I forgot to mention that also one of the groundbreaking ceremonies involved the construction of 50 megawatt solar panel by PLN, our state-owned company, in partnership with a Singapore-based company named Semcorp. So 50 megawatt will be based on solar, so green energy, but PLN is also building the transmission, the grid, using the existing system in Kalimantan, which is for the moment is still dominated by fossil fuel. But part of the vision of Nusantara is to have 7.2 gigawatt renewable energy by 2045. And out of that, for example, 1.2 gigawatt alone will come from solar PV. So yes, we have very strong push on renewables, but of course we need to also find a technical solution to make sure that these renewables will provide stability as well as affordability for the system.
Fantastic. I had the privilege of visiting Borneo some years ago, and it's certainly a beautiful part of the world. And I think it's, you know, this great vision to see the city as part of the forest and to see this new capital here in Borneo. It's certainly a great place that I look forward to visiting down the track.
Please do come again. Please do come again. We invite you to come.
Thank you for the invitation. We're now moving on, if I can, to the second part of our panel conversations, where we look to get some insights from the international ITS community based on their experience that can perhaps potentially provide some insight into the new city developments here. So it's my pleasure to introduce the President of ITS Australia, Celia Trethef. And Celia is also the Vice President of Asia Pac and General Manager Australia at Q-Free. So thank you very much, Celia, for joining us today, and I look forward to your overview of some activities at ITS Australia, but also some smart transport initiatives around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Hello, everyone. As Susan said, my name is Celia Trethef. I am the new President of ITS Australia, and I'm very honoured to take on this role, leading on from Dean Sabrizak. In addition, I work for Q-Free. I'm the Vice President of the Asia Pacific region. I've spent quite a bit of time in Jakarta, actually, in my role with Q3, looking at systems, ERP systems around the city. So nice to meet you all again, and I'm really looking forward to coming back to Jakarta later in May for the AP Forum. So today, I want to talk a little bit about ITS Australia and what we do and some of the research projects that we're working on. And maybe some of these projects can inspire you do for the new capital city in Indonesia as well. After that, I'll talk a little bit about Q3 and what we do that we provide to have efficient, safe and sustainable cities. But first, ITS Australia is proud to work very closely with industry, with government and academia to shape the future of transport here in Australia. We have a big focus on policy and advocacy work. We try to inform and influence government and also best represent our members and the interests of our members. Actually, in 2023, ITS Australia passed a huge milestone. We have now 150 members for the very first time. And as a peak body, we partner with government and our members on a number of groundbreaking research projects. Some of these projects is the integrated connected data for safer and efficient traffic management operations. So this project is really leveraging new data that's available in the transport ecosystem. It does that in real time to try and leverage some of the safety benefits that we can see. So for example, it can detect near misses. So this project is highly consistent with the long-term safety and mobility goals that we have, but also providing specific traffic system and driver behavior improvement in the short term. And when we come to Jakarta next month, we will talk more about this project. And there's also a progress report available on the ITS Australia website if you're interested to have a look at how this project is progressing. We're also really pleased to be part of a recently announced CITS National Harmonisation Pre-Deployment Project in Australia. So this aims to achieve harmonised national approach for CITS deployment across Australia. So as we all know, especially us that work in this industry, CITS can significantly improve safety benefits for road users by detecting and providing advanced warnings for drivers and also prevent accidents and improve efficiency across our transport network and also protect vulnerable road users. So to realise these benefits, it's critical that we work across government and industry to make sure that we have the same approach. So this project in Australia is uplifting 30 intersections across 5 key corridors in Melbourne and using advanced sensors and communication to transmit live information about traffic and road users. So Q3 is also participating alongside ITS Australia in this project to give vehicle-to-vehicle communication, vehicle-to-infrastructure communication around safety and efficiency. So this program, because of the scale, this is really significant because this will help Australian road authorities with the adoption of CITS in a nationally harmonised manner. And as you know, Australia, we have several different states and territories around. So it's important that we have this harmonised approach. Another project that we're working on, and I think this can be interesting for Pak Anggun Wikansono as well when we talk about the EV development for Nusantara. The project is accessibility guidelines for low and zero emission vehicle charging infrastructure. So this particular project will develop guidelines for low and zero emission vehicle charging infrastructure to use best practice and collaborate with people with a disability, but also with industry. So underpinning this important work is the principle that charging a low or a zero emission vehicle should be easy for everyone. It should be easy for people with a disability, but also for older people. So these guidelines then will help designers and road managers and promote safety benefits across planning and design for EV infrastructure for all users. So we will share the findings when the report is finalized. But beyond these sort of research activities that we do at ITS Australia, I want to share a couple of lessons that we have in the Australian ITS environment as well. So widely deployed ITS in Australia is advanced traffic management systems, but also tolling systems. So building a new city means huge investment in infrastructure. So a good way of paying for this infrastructure is through toll collection. And this is not new for Indonesia, as you have several toll roads around Jakarta, which I've traveled on many times. But as we know from these toll road systems and from experience from Australia and from Europe as well, this system does not only pay for the infrastructure, but it also helps reduce congestion, it can improve traffic flow, it can reduce pollution and make our cities greener and more livable, especially if these systems are free flow systems, whether they are single lane free flow or multi-lane free flow. So that is what Q3 does. We've been doing this for 40 years. We started out in Norway in 1984, and now it's a global company delivering tolling systems around the world, creating solutions for intelligence, traffic systems that are efficient, safe, and sustainable as well. I want to touch on one more aspect as a lesson from Australia, and this is also closely linked to what Pak Bambang Susantono talked about in his keynote, that the new capital is looking for sustainable options for transportation, to give more space for active transport, to have then a vibrant community. And this is a focus in Australia as well. Australia has traditionally been a car-driven society. We love the car. We have a long culture driving a car. But we see now that we're trying to transition away from this. So in Sydney, for example, over 2 million car trips are under 2 kilometers. And this is driven every single day. So we need to try and move away from this and look at alternative modes of transport. We saw during the pandemic that there was a huge jump in active transport, in cycling and walking and running, but also using scooters. But we saw this actually before the pandemic hit as well. It's a focus among traffic planners and politicians to encourage cycling and walking as an alternative mode in transport, to promote efficiency as well as sustainability and also health. And now with cities as well having net zero targets, this is becoming really important on a political level. So I think it's a really good opportunity for a new city to invest in technology that can monitor active transport, that can encourage active transport, but also making sure that it is safe for an active transport user to be walking and cycling in a multimodal environment. So those are some of the lessons that I wanted to highlight in this talk. Happy to hand back to Susan now, but thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk about Australia and what we do, and hopefully that can inspire some of the thinking around the new capital city in Indonesia as well. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Celia. Great to see, thanks for sharing the story of the work that we're doing at ITS Australia. We're proud to be a part of that and, appreciate your leadership and also the great work of our members to bring all of that work about. When we look at what's happening with the Nusantara Capital Authority, what are some of the things that you might like to see really taken on board from some of the things you've seen either in Australia or around the globe?
I think really around active transportation, making sure that when we build something new, that there is space, there's footpaths, there are safe bike routes, and there's a safe way for active transport users to move around. Because I think that is one of the barriers for jumping on a bike or walking. It's the safety aspect, right? So people want to know that they are safe. And if we can try and monitor that in a way and share that information, I think that would be a good step to have like a healthy city, a green city and a healthy city as well. And obviously trying to curb congestion around the city as well as some of the points that I would try to get across there.
They're, I think, really encouraging that active transport. You look at our cities, here we've got an opportunity to start really look at designing them for people and have people move through the cities with modern technology.
That's right.
Great, thank you. Well, I hope you'll also be able to stay around for our panel conversation. And for now, I'm going to move on and introduce our next speaker. So really pleased to have Mr. Fred Cool, President of ITS Singapore and Managing Director of Unix Traffic. Fred, really pleased to have you here for this conversation today and to hear your insights and contribution around what you've seen in Singapore and elsewhere. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you very much, Susan, and thank you very much also here, William, for this kind invitation. I think it's a good approach to look around, go your own way, do what you think is the right thing for your projects to do in Nusantara, but be smart and say, hey, we have to learn from someone who has done it, maybe what you are intending to do, and then you define what is the right thing. And I'm very pleased to represent ITS Singapore, and in this form also Singapore, to share what has been done and how, I would say, the extraordinary transportation situation in Singapore has been achieved. I will try to share some slides and hope. Yeah. Yeah, you should see the slide, correct? Good, so we are here. So can you tell me whether you just, Susan or so, William, that whether you can see the full screen?
Yes, you can.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Fred.
Perfect. Okay, very good. Good. I'm not a Zoom expert. So here we are. Just to remember, this is Singapore, one of the nice spots, and we decided, William was asking whether we could share a little bit what are the lessons learned and how Singapore has achieved what Singapore is famous for. We had actually seen a map. Bambang Seswantano showed us where Nusantara will be, and we all have to get used to that. For the future, Singapore is more known, but I would like to share some data a little bit, because if you just see on this slide, and I just remind everyone, because we are in the region, so we know this, Singapore is a city. I don't want to overestimate it. It's a city with 5.6 million people, which is the size of Melbourne or the size of Sydney. And it is only a fourth, as I learned today, a fourth of the size of the future Nusantara. So the situation will be totally different, how we have to tackle in the different locations the transportation. But at least it's close by, so better you come and have a look. Because we will, in the future, and for a new city, it will maybe different, but in the future, we will have all the same problems. These are the main traffic challenges and transportation challenges in Singapore. We have an increasing traffic demand. Everybody needs to be mobile. Even after COVID, it really increased more than we all expected. We have a land constraint. Nusantara doesn't have it, but we have not so much space. 12% of the land space in Singapore is used for streets. Can you imagine that? There's not more. But still, 70% is still nature and parks. Then, of course, manpower. We have to be attractive for the digital talents of the world. And finally, aging, a situation where countries like Japan, for example, and Singapore has a similar one. Aging is a situation, we have to address it, and that's why the solution we offer must all attract and consider all those challenges. So the story which I would like to share is a little bit how we started, where we went forward to. So at the beginning, it was just, we call it hardware centric. We were building roads, building bridges, building tunnel about maybe 30, 40 years ago. And now definitely it's time to get these tunnels and upgraded again. In the meantime, there was a shift already away from the hardware, more to data and software centric approach. And this phase has been finalized more or less. It's still ongoing, but the focus in the future is for sure more on environment and on the needs of human beings and citizens in the city. That's why we have to cover all aspects of the plan. And here, one of the sources of this plan, how Singapore developed, was already quite early, the Singapore Green Plan. It's a master plan which was used from LTA, from the Ministry of Transport, ITS. Singapore was involved in developing this plan to come up with an ITS master plan. And because it's quite small, I just want to highlight the criteria which are relevant for transportation. So first of all, the plan is, the guideline is, the city, it must be a city in nature, not with a park. The city must be in the nature. So we call it city in a park, actually. That's why, besides all the environmental related activities, there needs to be enough space. So we can't build more roads just to have another street, another lane. So this is definitely not the case. That's why we have to look into these more sustainable living, how transportation can do. And the target is that there will be, in the year 2030, no need actually to take your car. The 75% of all trips in Singapore, already more or less today, we are quite close, are done by public transport. That's why walking distance, only 10 minutes walking for 85% of the population. And active mobility, they are cycling paths. You can take a bike and go through all the national parks which are connected, and you will not need to cross the street, and so on. But mainly one important topic, this is the railway system, because we have to offer alternatives to individual transportation. And this is affordable, sustainable, clean, safe transportation. We will talk about it. And finally, the environmental aspect is related to energy. So very strong focus on clean, we call them cleaner energy vehicle. It's not that there's a must, you have to be electric. There are maybe in the future other ways of having cleaner technology. Right. Okay. How was this done? And Singapore is very good in making a plan, executing the plan, and working already on the next plan. And this you can see, but already in 1996, which is now soon 30 years ago, there was a plan to have the world-class land transport system. So there was a plan developed and measures defined and executed. The next plan was 2008, is the land transport master. Then it came to the land master plan 2013, and now we are in the phase which was launched in 2019, so already 5 years ago, as a 2040 master. And you can imagine the next one will come for the future. And this is, I think, one of the strengths of Singapore, having a very good planning. There's a urban redevelopment agency, the land transport agency. They're working all hand in hand. Ministry of Finance, for sure. So they're all working together and executing this plan. So in order, just a snapshot on what actually is this Transport Master Plan 2040, it shows some highlights of how a livable city could be. So first of all, knowing Jakarta, for example, with the challenges, how long it takes, how unpredictable it is to go from A to B, the plan is definitely that when 2040 is achieved, and even earlier, there's only within the town, you need 20 minutes from A to B, wherever you want to go, and maximum 45 minutes from one side of Singapore to the other. And this is all done by the technology available, autonomous on-demand services for the future, more hubs where the people could use and go, decentralized hubs. Healthy living, this is, as we mentioned already, a very strong focus, a very strong plan. Even some years ago, Singapore launched a 100-year outlook on what the plans should be to fight against climate change and to be protected against climate change. And of course, the third one was to understand climate change. So a very strong focus. And finally, and we mentioned this when we talked about the aging of the population, transport for all. So it's not just nice and fancy and having the best app. Not everybody is able to use the app. So how can we bring our silver generation, as we call them, into this new world of demand, on-demand transportation and so on. So a very strong focus, and this is covered in detail in our plan. But there's one famous way of avoiding traffic is by not having traffic. That's why, and I will not touch it intensively, but there's a limitation of 1 million vehicles in Singapore. You cannot have more than 1 million. And if you want to have a vehicle, you have to pay for the right to have a vehicle. So it's actually quite expensive. And the alternative is a very good transport system, a very good metro system and bus transport system, very affordable, very safe, very clean, very air conditioned. So why do you need a car? Talking briefly about cars, for sure, also Singapore is going the way to promote electric vehicles, supporting all the charging stations, for example. And the good part of having a COE, a certification of entitlement, would be that you are. It is possible to have the entire fleet in Singapore changed within 10 years by just changing the rules, because you only can have the right to drive your car for 10 years. That's why the most important solution for a sustainable, efficient, clean environment is public transportation. We have to say that. One way, of course, is also to bring people away from their cars, is tolling. Celia talked about that there's technology available, but there needs still to be an alternative, an affordable alternative. And if you just see the map of the city, let's call it the city of Singapore, it's amazing. So there will be about 360 kilometers of subway system in the city, supported by all the other activities like taxi and ride-hailing companies, active mobility, shared bike services, and whatnot. So the system is still under construction. So there are big, for example, here's one. It's the Cross Island Line. Cross Island Line is being under construction. So adding metro lines so that it is very affordable to go from A to B and very convenient to go from A to B. And we should not forget that convenience plays more and more an important role. Cars may be still more convenient, but if you stay in the traffic jam, maybe it's smarter to use public transport. Coming to an end, so still talking a bit about ITS. So ITS is a very technology-driven industry, and for the 1 million vehicles, even these 1 million, only 1 million, needs to have a smooth and managed traffic. And definitely Singapore has one of the latest technologies installed, running for many years already, being upgraded and maintained, using the latest technology on site, on the field equipment, but also in the center, traffic management center, and combining, for example, tunnel management system, which are ongoing. The emergency response is a big topic there, and so on. So, and on top of all of that, optimization, the traffic operation, from planning, simulation, prediction, into the operation. So this is a holistic system for the public transport on buses, which are part of the road service, and the individual transportation. So then finally, last slide is actually, as I said, Singapore is good in planning. Are they also good in achieving? And this slide is actually made in 2016. 2016, you can see on the right side, so from current, this was 2016, what we have, like limited mobility options, limited service providers. We have a peak capacity-driven approach of planning. We have car-oriented infrastructure and fragmented access to information. This was done. The plan is actually, and I have to tell you, a spoiler a bit, what we have achieved, what the status is today, and this was the plan for today, is not the future, but it's present. There are options, many, many options to go from A to B. It's an integrated public transport and private service provider service available. Optimized assets utilization on demand management. So the demand is not peak oriented, but when we need the service. It's a people-centric development. This hasn't been in the past, and a data-driven connected community. So this was the visionary of someone 2016 say this is actually where we are and we want to be there, and we proudly can say that we have achieved that. By that, I thank you very much for your attention. Come and visit Singapore, get an idea, and I wish William and the entire team, ITS Indonesia and the Nusantara Authority, all the best for this big and important project, Nusantara. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much, Fred. Look, great overview of what's been achieved in Singapore and some of the things that are ongoing. I think it's fascinating to look at a modern, compact city like Singapore and to see how much work continues to go in to make that city work effectively and make the transport systems continue to evolve and improve in that space. So thank you very much for the oversights in that space. Do you have some key thoughts about what we've seen a number of presentations about what's happening in Nusantara and the new capital there. We've got a lot of things happening in Singapore to improve things in an existing city. What are the number one things that you need to be top of mind in Nusantara as they move forward with the new capital there?
Yeah, while we were speaking, I saw a chat here from the audience, and I think the chat was, is it planned to have a metro system in Nusantara? And maybe, William, you can talk about this later. I mentioned it once or twice. I believe alternate options. That's the one. I have to say, when I know Sydney well, as you know, and going some places from A to B, if you don't have a car, you're lost. You have to have a car. Of course, it's not comparable, but we need options for a city like Nusantara. People need to decide. I want to be active. I want to ride a bike. I want to take a bus. I want to take my car and whatnot. And if the options are affordable and the options are easy to handle, then I'm sure the transportation will be will have a good start right from the beginning. So for me, it's not so much the technology; it's more the availability of the service.
Yeah, fantastic, and making sure that there are those options there and that they're appealing to people to take those services. I kind of think is really key. It's all very well to have different ranges of mass transit, but unless it's convenient and attractive to people, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah.
Look, thank you very much, Fred, for your contribution. I'm going to invite the others of our panel to turn their cameras back on if I can. We've got quite a few questions, as you mentioned, starting to come through in the chat, and we're going to take advantage of our the expertise on our panel to respond to some of these, if I may. So we've got some very practical questions, and then some big picture questions on where things are headed. Particularly with regards to Nusantara, there are a couple of questions here about engagement with industry, the mechanism to engage with the ITS industry and for foreign investors. So probably more, firstly focusing on the vendors. Can we give a bit more information about how the vendors might get information about opportunities and engage with the development of the city? Is that something maybe for you, Sylvia, or?
I'll pass it to Agung.
Thanks, Agung.
Thank you, Sylvia. You'll be the one using it. I'll be the one providing it. So yes, we're very happy that companies who provide technologies are interested in the transportation solution for Nusantara. And for now, especially for EV bus, our strategy is to work with the operators. So it will be operators that engage directly with us. Certainly, we are open to technology providers to come and introduce, propose, and such. But later, we will engage with the operator. So the operator will have the capability and also the competence to select and engage with the technology provider. As of now, the plan is that we will follow what we call the by the service approach, where what we will compensate is the service of the buses service, not the fleet itself. Yeah, so the fleet will be managed by the operators. But of course, when it comes to technology, for example, the ATMS or the ITS Command Center, we're very happy to also work with them. And as I mentioned, the scheme of public-private partnership, PPP, is one possibility where we again will procure the available service that the vendor has, and we have the government guarantee as one mechanism that enables that to happen.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense that as opportunities become available, that we put out there for the industry to look at. With regards to that conversation around a metro and around the type of transports that may be available, I mean, we've talked broadly about what's there. Is there a vision for a metro within the city? We love trams in Australia. Might there be trams as part of that network? Is it a driverless vehicle city? Interested to understand that the public transport framework that's being considered at the moment.
Yeah, so maybe I can answer for that. So when it comes to the mobility in the city, as I mentioned earlier, that one of our key KPIs is about 80% public transportations. So that will become our priority, and the different mode of public transportation is definitely is expected to be implemented into the capitals, because as actually Fred mentioned, I agree with that. It's about options. We're providing them options, but option whereby public transportations will be made as convenient, as accessible as possible, and therefore it becomes the choice mode of commuting. So in this case, for us, we begin with the fact that we designed the city with the concept of 10-minute city, whereby it's a polycentric city. So there'll be a lot of 10-minute center city, and it's combined with a mixed use zoning. So the intention is that for people from their dwelling, they can access their public spaces, to their office, to their commercial areas within walking distance, or with their micro-mobilities devices, whichever that they prefer, right, within 10 minutes, or to the most immediate mode of public transportation, be it a bus, or is it be a tram, or even is a metro later on. And then it is going to be supported then within the polycentric centers, right, with bigger mode of transportations. Is it a light rail systems or even a mass transportation like MRT systems? So we are going to be open with the various mode of transportations, but the most importantly, our basis is based on demand and needs for the city, right? So for example, the fact that we're gonna start the operation of the city in this 2024, the population is still, of course, very low. We are expecting perhaps urban buses and BRT at the most will be the type of transportations, public transportation in the city. But later on, as the population grow, and of course, as the city expanded, we'll probably start to expect light rail systems or maybe tram systems. And of course, finally, a metro system in the city, right? And then, of course, for the new capital, we don't just look into what is to be provided in the city itself, but how actually the new capital is going to be connected with the adjacent city like Balikpapan and Samarinda. So therefore, we also have been planning, besides toll roads, one of the earlier mode of connectivities, but we are also planning now airport railways to connect the airport lines of Balikpapan to the new capital, as well as a regional railway network. And in fact, it can go as far as how to connect the entire island of Kalimantan with a railway network as well. So this is something that currently we are working on to put it into a master plan so that we can have a very clear guidelines on what to expect to be delivered and developed over the next years ahead.
Yes, thanks very much, Sylvia. I mean, certainly, I think the other challenge, that Singapore also faces, but in in Nusantara would be the just the climate of the city. So having that 10-minute commute makes it, suitable to do a walk for 10 minutes. And then if we've got that complemented with other things as well. I mean, Fred, what are some of the things that are being put in place in Singapore to help address that challenge of the climate and people moving through the city in that environment?
Yeah.
May I ask a question, Sylvia? So when you talk about bringing people away from their cars into public transport, and we said before, because it's hot, it's humid, it's raining, and so on, Singapore invented something great, which is sheltered walkways.
Yes.
So I'm a German, so originally, and they asked me, hey, how do you do that in Germany? Because you have so much rain and you have so much snow. I said, there are no walkways, sheltered walkways. So by attracting really, even the last 100 meters is one little step to bring them forward, to bring them to the public transport. The other one, and this is my question now, is when you toll the roads, then you have either the opportunity to toll roads in order to fund public transport, so a direct transfer of the cost and subsidize public transport, or it is just by balancing the traffic. May I ask you, have you considered these two options? Is this what you have in mind to address in Nusantara?
I note that there are two questions there, Fred. First is about how to address about the cities, the climate situations, right? Yeah, it is a very hot city, right? It's at times it can be hotter than Singapore, I think, in the new capitals. So the strategy is, of course, how to bring the public transportation nearer, to the buildings or the transit area or the centers, right? And also to have better connectivity between buildings, so that that seamless connections between buildings that can be sheltered as well. That helps people, to walk around in the city in a better conducive situations. And of course, but beyond that, the city itself, we are looking at microclimating, how we can actually able to reduce the temperature in the city. So whereby therefore the city itself we can expect a lot of parks, a lot of gardens, as well as a lot of waterways, to help to cool down actually the city, so that it makes people feel more comfortable to walk around, cycles, or other mobility devices that they may have in mind, right? Now, so that's the first one. And the second one, if I understand correctly, your questions is about how are we going to treat between the toll road, the tolling system, the road, right? Or the road charging, right? With this railway networks, right? Whether is it going to be a what do you call it, cross funding or cross subsidy, or there's a different business model? Well, the thing is that the way we see it now is that we are building the city from scratch, right? So they are not yet one particular systems like fixed, and so the way we are trying to do now is that we want to actually be open to the possible business models that may be offered and proposed by the investors, or in this case, or vendors or operators, right? I believe there's a lot of lesson learned already in the various city on how they have been actually implementing these strategies. There are some, yes, doing crop subsidy. There are some actually just simply ensuring they're servicing different, different commuters, right? So we are currently basically being open to what are the possible business models, and then we are learning as well how actually it will be better or not for the new capital. Yeah.
Thanks, Sylvia. Celia, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I guess I can shed a little bit of light on experience from other places. So obviously in Australia, we have a very advanced motorway network. In Sydney, for example, that is built a public-private partnership, and a lot of that infrastructure is then financed by the toll roads. And then there are other solutions like in Stockholm, for example, where you have congestion charging or an ERP system that is mainly put in place to limit the congestion and pollution in the city. And that the funding from that congestion charging system is then goes back into public transport. So to give people an alternative or an option, you know, not just to pay tolls. So yeah, there's different models, different things to think about for you there.
Got one toll road in there. Has there been thought about other, you know, road user charging or other, you know, maybe this is more of an investment and funding question, but in terms of other approaches to get that balance right between levels of congestion plus funding across the network.
Mm.
The other question that I had, if you...
Yeah, is there questions? Sorry, Susan, if I'm, you know, I missed it.
No, that's all right. I think I'll move on to look at more of the public transport funding and model there. So there's a big network to be built. So that's a significant capital investment. And then you've talked about the fact that there'll be operators on board to run the public transport system and the variety there. Just wondering about whether there's any thought about how much the public-private mix of investment to run and operate the public transport service that will be put in place.
Well, I think that's a question that relates more on funding, and as of now, the plan is to have 20% of the funding come from the government, and 80% is from the private side. But I think that is what is based for the government until this year. So, which we will have a new president being sworn in October, and we will have another cycle of medium-term planning from 2025 to 2029 onward, which means there is room for opportunity that public involvement, public funding involvement on building the infrastructure that will be necessary. So, for example, I think we understand that for the facility, the infrastructure, the track, and also some of the stations, it's very much usually in the domain of the public sector side, while the operation of the station and also the rolling stock, for example, it's very possible to come from the private sector side. So this kind of mix would be necessary, and that is why the current feasibility study being done, we are working together with the Ministry of Transportation, will be important to determine that aspect from 2025 onward.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. That certainly makes sense. Just having a look at some of the questions we've got coming through here. So, Fred, people have been very interested in the restricted number of vehicles in Singapore. Are there any plans to have any restriction on vehicle numbers in Nusantara?
Yes, actually, currently we are looking into the mechanism and the framework on how we want to implement such restrictions. I mean, Singapore is like an example for it, on how they go about it. But for us, we are trying to formulate that still at the moment. But basically, yes, we identified that there's going to be a need for restrictions to be implemented going forward. Because again, the aim that is we want to maintain and the ability to achieve the 80% public transportations. Mathematically means like only 20% mobility in the city will be using private vehicles, right? Yeah. Yeah. And besides the number of restrictions, the other restriction actually that we are currently formulating is the fossil fuel vehicles. Yeah, the intention of the plan is that the new capital will only allow non-fossil fuel vehicles or low emissions vehicles to be moving about in the city. So we expect at the beginning, perhaps only EV vehicles, EV cars, EV taxi, EV bus, and to be in operation in capitals.
Certainly it highlights the exciting opportunity of starting afresh. You know, we don't have legacy vehicles that need to be accommodated, so we can set rules in place and, you know, import new vehicles. Maybe not as easy as that, Sylvia.
Yeah, it's not as easy. Yes, we recognize the challenge because surrounding the new capitals are, are existing cities, big cities who are really, are using the, just fossil fuel cars and vehicles, right? And then the populations of EV cars in Indonesia, especially in the East Kalimantan, is basically still very low. Yeah, so and therefore part of the strategy in implementing this kind of restrictions is the introductions of a park and ride points whereby will requires fossil fuels vehicles to reach the park and ride and make a switch of vehicles either to an EV car. You can rent it, or you can take a EV taxi, or you can take the EV buses to enter the new capital.
Yeah, that achieves a number of goals, doesn't it? In that we restrict the number of vehicles coming into the city, but then also keep the city clean and pollution free. Excellent. So I understand there might be some celebrations coming up for Indonesian Independence Day in Nusantara.
Yeah, that will be in the 17th August this year. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And are there plans for some EV transport to be put in place for that? I've got some questions about the details that might be available.
It kind of like the first test, I guess, for us to implement the EV cars and EV vehicles in the new capital. So that's why as we are preparing this, that we are recognizing the challenge, like in terms like as simple as the number of EV buses that can be made available for the ceremony, as well as EV cars, for some of the VIPs that will be coming into the new capitals coming from Balikpapan. And then, how to bring these people who are interested and will be coming and join the national event, into the new capitals, and also how to bring them out afterwards, right? And so so that's why the park and rides facilities also become very important, because we know there'll be still gonna be non-EV cars and buses that will be approaching the new capitals. So that is something that currently we are in the midst of preparing for the events.
Yeah, fantastic. If I may, I'm going to have one more question probably for you, Sylvia, and then I'll come back to the panel as a whole. So we've got some questions here around, I guess, about we've got a lot of infrastructure being built at the moment, but obviously we need to get the public transport in place to support the visions and goals. But then also around that, very strong vision for the 10-minute city and how that's being put in place in the context of land use planning and the transport system that's supporting that. So I guess that balance of where are we at with getting that transport up and running, but how is that also being planned with the whole vision for the city and the land use planning to get that 10-minute city, if I may?
Yeah. So how do we ensure that this 10-minute city concept is actually being implemented? We begin with the city planning and the urban planning itself. So what we have produced is urban design guidelines that very strictly and very detailed planned out and specify how the land use to be utilized, as well as connectivities to be provided in that particular district that is governed by this urban design guidelines. So we have urban design guidelines for various districts, right? And each district of these urban design guidelines, you can see a very detailed land plannings, buildings, building mass, planning as well, connectivities between buildings, connectivity between districts, as well as provisions for future stations, for example, right? And also future BRT line and bus stops as well. So every developers coming into the new capitals, when they start to plan in each of their land parcels, right? They already have all these informations, and they will use this information to plan how the building is to be designed and how the building needs to be connected with the road network and with the other building networks as well. Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of forethought to go in and a lot of planning, but congratulations on the strong work that's happening in that space. Look, it's such an exciting vision. I really look forward to the opportunity myself to come out to Nusantara at the right time. But just as we wrap up this part of the conversation, I'm just interested from each of our panelists. So if, just in a short sentence or a few words, you know, we've got a couple of us here who have the opportunity to build a new capital, others that might be looking on. What are the things that you would like to see front of mind if we were building a new city? What's the most exciting opportunity that you'd like to see come to life in a new capital city? So I don't know if I've got a volunteer to go first that's got an idea, perhaps one of our existing panel, one of our members from Indonesia or Nusantara. And the question without notice for my panelists, so they might have to have a few minutes to reflect on your answer. Celia, please go ahead.
For a new city, I guess looking at what people would want to see and what I would also love to see is green space. So making sure that we have enough safe footpath and pathways for people to move around using kind of active transport, especially with your goals around this 80% public transportation and 20% private vehicles, to have that option for active transport in a safe way. I think I would love to see, but also around this keeping congestion and pollution out of the city around potentially like a low emission zone area. I think that would be a really good to see in the new capital city.
Thank you, Celia. Fred, from your point of view, do you have what would you like to see?
I have a long list, definitely. But let's start definitely with the comfort. So comfort, why? Because, you know, it's hard to make laws and regulations and force someone to do it. And enforcement, the name says already, we are enforcing someone to do it, so you have to pay. Better would be that people are understanding that's much better to use public transport or to not go in the morning at 8 o'clock, but maybe earlier or later. So this can only be achieved if it's a comfortable commute. And this could be in your own car. So I'm not saying we should ban any cars, but it could also be that the environment, the waiting time, so the head time for the metro and the buses and so on is all convenient for our final customers, which are the citizens. And if we are not achieving that, and this can be achieved by an app, this could be achieved by a camera that you get a green wave, for example, when you are approaching a city or a pedestrian crossing, then people would use it. And that's, I think, our role, because we are building it for the citizens and they need to enjoy it, that they're living in Nusantara. And I think this would be in my mind, making sure that it's comfortable for the people so they use it.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. Certainly making comfortable and convenient, and just that vision around having buildings closely linked in with the transport spaces in the climate that we're dealing with certainly seems to make a lot of sense in that space.
Yeah.
Sylvia, from your point of view, you know, you've got a big job ahead of you. What's the number one or two things that really excite you about the opportunity here?
Well, I mean, like I said, I like your first questions about what we want to see in the new city, in the future city. Well, I have to say that the new capital, we call it Nusantara, is the visions of a future city. You know, we have been talking a lot what a future city should be like technology, it should be green, it should be sustainable, it should be comfortable. And those are the things that we are trying to achieve and to deliver here in the new capital. And that's why we will say that our vision is not just for Indonesian populations, but also for the world. So I'm excited to see, therefore, is that the city is gonna be built not just by Indonesian, but is by the citizens of the world. And that's why we have been going around and then telling and sharing information about the new capital and inviting everybody to come and participate in the development of the new capitals, right? And it's not just about financing. Yes, we do need the money from the private sectors, and therefore the 80% private sector's funding. But I think, you know, if it's a city for all, then it has to be built by everybody. So we want the collaboration of everybody to come into the new capitals, and I really look forward for that to actually happening, you know, in the coming months and years ahead. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you,
much.
Susan.
Thank you, Sylvia. I love that idea that this is a blueprint of what our cities could all look like, and we can come and learn from the hard work that you've all done. So, Agung, to wrap up, what's your view or your highlight that we're looking forward to?
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Celia. I don't think I have a lot to add, but basically, the word of Nusantara being a world-class city for all basically sums up a world-class city for all, not only for the inhabitants that will have, you know, the inclusivity principle, but also for, you know, the investors to come from all over the world and create a picture, the picture that we want to see. And this is a place where you can draw on a clean canvas. This is why I think it is attractive for companies to come, because you don't have the challenge of what we have here in Jakarta, not only in terms of traffic, overpopulation, and also a lot of environmental challenges. We can draw now a picture from scratch. And I understand, Fred, this scratch situation doesn't provide a lot of comfort at the beginning. So the kind of transition to make this comfort gradually in the ideal picture that we have in the future, that's what needs to happen. So a lot of inputs will be needed, especially in this formation stage. The 80-20 proportion, the 100% electric, those are the vision for the future. But I think the gradual steps toward creating this comfort, but also not comfort in the way we see here in Jakarta, where people goes from one point to another as close as possible with private vehicle, you know, from one lobby to another. But the comfort, like you said, for example, in Singapore, people goes from one public transport to a building to another, you know, in a way that is very, you know, pedestrian friendly, but also disabled friendly. Those are the things that we need to put in mind at the top. So with that, the world-class city for all can happen for all citizens, but also for all the best standard in the world to come. Thank you.
Look, thank you very much. A wonderful note to close on. You know, congratulations on a fabulous view for this new capital and for what our urban environments can be, and for the hard work that's being done to deliver that. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank all of our panellists. I know that there are some questions still there in the chat, but just need to encourage all those that are online to come along to the Asia Pac Forum. I'm sure the Nusantara Capital Authority will be well represented there. It's the opportunity to ask more questions and to find out how to get more engaged or to provide your contributions for the new capital. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Elisa to wrap up for us. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
I think we just end the session. Susan, I don't think Alisa is.
Oh, no, that is fine. I thought she was going to wrap up with some MC comments, but I think I've wrapped up, and really I'll certainly be at the Asia Pac Forum with you, William, and I'm really looking forward to continuing these conversations there and to actually sitting down in person with everyone. So again, thank you everyone for their time, and thanks everyone for joining online.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pa William. Thank you, Susan. See you.
Thank you, Bu Sylvia. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Celia. Thank you, Susan. Thank you all participants. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on today's session. Don't forget to come to the IKS event. We'll see you on the main event, and as well as don't forget to come on the 28th until the 30th of May 2024 at Jakarta Convention Center. Thank you very much for all speakers and moderator. We'll see you on the next event. Thank you for all participants. Thank you very much. See you. We'll see you.